Hi, boys and girls. It's Mr. Yates and Ms. Garcia, and in this video, we're going to give you a little bit of help on how to answer the question of the day for City of Ember Chapter 17. The question, Ms. Garcia, if I remember, was about you really saw when you were reading Chapter 17 that Lena and Dune were showing some great teamwork, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what we want to do is we want to find examples that in that chapter that support her claim. And we also want to explain how what they do shows teamwork. But before we answer the question, we really kind of have to have an idea of how we're going to write that out, how we're going to use our evidence to support that kind of a claim. And we just want to make sure we understand what teamwork's about. So I wrote up a little example one here of something else, which is our robotics match. Most of you guys know that I coach the robotics team. And so we do some robotics matches. And I kind of figured this photo might have some clues about Lucas and Legend showing teamwork during the recent robotics match. So when I looked at it, I said, well, my first thought was, well, awesome. You know what? Look at that awesome blue shirt that Lucas is wearing. That's a great example of teamwork. Don't you think, Miss Garcia?
I think it is an awesome blue shirt, but I don't know if it necessarily shows great teamwork.
Oh, now that I think about it, you're right. It doesn't really make sense just to say he wears a blue shirt as showing that's teamwork. I guess really what we should do is kind of come up with an idea of, let's brainstorm what teamwork means. Maybe come up with some ideas. Before we even start looking for examples of teamwork, we should probably know what teamwork's all about. Because you're right, that doesn't seem to make sense. So let me go ahead. So what would you say some things that, like, if you had to like just do a list of like some ideas, what's one thing about teamwork that you think you would?
I would definitely say teamwork is working together to achieve a common goal.
Okay. That's a great one, because I can already tell in this picture that Lucas and Legend are working together to win this match. So that's definitely a good example of showing teamwork right there. Another thing I noticed about it is that these two guys have to take turns when they drive the robot. They can't just sort of hog all of it and say, I'm going to do everything and you don't do anything. So I think that's another, to me, that seems like another good example of teamwork, is taking turns, sharing the work so that everyone gets to participate in there. What else do you notice? What else does teamwork remind you of when you think about teamwork?
I would definitely say teamwork is, whether it's robotics or it's, working together on like an assignment or something, you really have to bounce ideas off one another.
Oh, yeah. When they do that during the competition, they have to talk about, well, let's do this. Oh, we should try this. And they respect that. They listen to each other. So
yes, they listen to one another and they talk out their thought process.
Talk about ideas with each other and listen to each other about it. Not just listening, just like, oh, he's snoring and I'm listening to him snoring, but more like Lucas could be talking about an idea and Legend's like, that's a great idea. Let's try that. Or let's add this a little bit. So listening and talking about ideas to each other, you're right. I'm going to add that word in there. So that's another good example of teamwork. Another one that popped into my head was, it is basically helping each other.
Yeah.
I thought to myself when they're doing this competition, like if Lucas had dropped the controller and Legend could have just stared at it and said, get it. But, he went over and picked it up for him. He helped him. And when you help each other, that's showing teamwork. So you're not letting just someone falter and you're on your own. Nope, you're working together. Anything else, Miss Garcia, that we're...
One thing I did notice because I was at the robotics competition is that they really support one another on a team. They really, when they were some of them were doing the remote control, because like you said, they have to take turns on it. Their teammates were really just cheering them on and really supporting one another.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. And that's definitely something we promote in the robotics team. I'm glad you noticed that. And it's definitely something that they're doing here, supporting each other. And there's some good examples of that, talking to each other and saying, hey, good job, cheering each other, good point. Well, I have a really good idea of what teamwork means, and I think we can apply these teamwork examples to chapter 17, don't you think, Ms. Garcia?
Yeah, I think that if you base it off that list, I think you're all set to go.
Yeah. And let's do a little quick model of what that means when we're trying to support the claims. So here, you know, the question was, how did Lucas and Legend show teamwork during the robotics match? So I'm just going to start off by restating my answer sentence. Lucas and Legend showed teamwork during the robotics match. And I guess I learned my lesson that just saying Lucas wore a really cool blue shirt is just not enough to show teamwork right here. But one thing that they did is they, you know, if you notice here, Lucas has got the controller. Legend was going to take it after his time. So, and then Lucas got it back. They took turns. So during the robotics match, showed teamwork during the robotics match when they shared driving the robot. They each took turns, and that's what I want to explain here. Lucas and Legend showed teamwork in the robotics match when they shared driving the robot, and I want to explain how that shows teamwork. Because it says here, oh, taking turns, sharing the work. So I'm going to explain right here. This shows teamwork because they are taking turns and sharing. Sharing the work. That's important. So I think it's a great way to sort of give you an idea, boys and girls, of what teamwork is, and then also how Ms. Garcia and I would like you to write out when you see an example of teamwork. Make sure you give evidence from the text. Now, in this one, I'm just looking at a picture, but make sure you use your proof, as always, and then tell me how it shows teamwork. That's what we're really going to look for, is how does this show teamwork? And we want to give, Ms. Garcia, are there a lot of examples in this chapter that they could use?
Yes, a big part of this chapter is about them, like their first steps to finding their way out of Ember, and a big portion, I would say, of this chapter is about them, you know, on their way out. So they definitely have to use teamwork in order to achieve that goal. So there's plenty of evidence in there for you guys to use. Just like Mr. Yates said, just make sure that you guys are using ideas to explain to us how your evidence is showing teamwork.
Great. And in the question, it'll tell you, make sure you show 3 examples and find the best 3 examples of teamwork to support Ms. Garcia's claim. Thank you, boys and girls. And I hope this helped. If you're still confused, make sure that you email Ms. Garcia and I, and we can help explain this question a little bit in more detail for you. All right. Thank you and good luck.